Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Cambridge Insider podcast. Awesome to have you all here. As always, your host, Stephen van Niekerk, out of New Jersey. And joining me, as per usual, my good friend from across the country in Seattle, Craig. How are you?
Oh, just doing fantastic today. It's a good day.
Awesome. How's the weather in Seattle?
Don't get me started on it. We got the smoke back. It's not as bad as it was the other week, and it's mixing with fog. So, we're just continuing that 2020 landscape that we all know and love so much.
All right, I appreciate the detail. And then we're really, really excited on the Cambridge Insider podcast for the very first time to welcome an official guest. And we have with us Chris Page, who is the Executive Director of CSIET, which is the Council on Standards for International Education Travel. Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the invite. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So for those of you that don't know what CSIET does, it's a private, not-for-profit organization. The mission is to provide leadership and support for the exchange and educational communities to ensure youth are provided with safe and valuable international and cultural exchange experiences. Chris, does that sound about right?
That sounds about right. We have a very long title. We're a relatively small organization, but we have a big footprint. So that's about right.
Awesome. Great to have you. Chris, where are you in the country at the moment?
I'm in Alexandria, Virginia, and that's where CSIET is based, but I am actually working from home today. So excuse any noise if a dog barks. It's likely because the mailman has come. That's his favorite thing to do. But here in Alexandria, and we're doing well. Thanks.
Alexandria, just to give some of our international listeners a little bit of a geography lesson, that's close to Washington, D.C., am I right?
That is correct, and we are just south of Washington, D.C. On the Potomac River, and we're close by to the U.S. Department of State, as well as the Department of Homeland Security, as well as the National Mall, and all that holds for us.
Awesome. All right, Chris. So I'm gonna hand you over to Craig, who's going to ask a few formal questions. And again, thank you for joining us. We're excited to learn something from you today.
Agreed. Thank you so much for joining us. You're our first guest, hopefully not our last one. Hopefully we can have you here again in the future as well. Just starting off, why is CSIET so important?
Yeah, thanks for asking. And again, thanks for the opportunity to talk about CSIET and what we do. We are the only standard setting organization for secondary school exchange in the U.S. And we have an evaluation process every year, and we're the only organization that can attest to the evaluation of our programs through a compliance audit. So that makes us unique. We evaluate programs on an annual basis. Our programs have to subscribe to a common set of standards and practices, which include specific attention to stewardship. That is caring for the students and all who are under our organization's care. Transparency, there's the dog. Transparency, and that essentially means that the schools and programs with which we work, there is some level of transparency between those two, as well as all the constituents. Engagement, our programs offer a good deal of engagement with the programs that they work with, as well as in a annual conference every year. Partnership, they work with each other as well as working with international partners to make sure that the connections are seamless. And specifically, I want to say something about our standards, and to get real put a fine point on it. We have organizations. Our organizations do criminal background checks. They have assurances that students are not recruited on the basis of athletic ability. They have to provide financial statements of financial viability. They have to provide orientation, local coordinator training, and they have to have monthly contact at a minimum with each of their organizations and their students.
And I think these are all great standards, and Cambridge Network has been a CSIET accredited program for a long time. Stephen and I can attest to it. We do the in-country orientations in China. That is a requirement. I have, dealt with when I was working with students, some of your audit capabilities, and I can say these are serious things that keep everybody on their toes and make sure that we're really working on behalf of the students. So it's very much appreciative that there's someone looking out for everybody in this world. So we all know that now it is a unique time in the international sphere, the international education travel sphere. What are the biggest challenges that are facing CSIET at these times?
Yeah, I think, during COVID-19, and especially now in an election year, there's an environment that's politically charged. It's important that we're able to remain a strong advocate for safe and valuable exchange, but and there are really many opinions on how to do that and what that means. But our charge has really not changed all that much. We try to cultivate excellence among our members. We evaluate, we certify long-term international student exchange programs, and we help ensure the safety and value for those all stakeholders. But I think one of the biggest things that we have to be able to overcome in this environment is a sense of self, and I don't mean CSIT, but I mean the industry. The numbers have dropped significantly over the past year. And with that comes a number of challenges for programs to be carrying out their missions. So our biggest challenge is being able to provide those organizations the sort of moral support that they need when the number of students are low. But also maintaining CSIET's character, maintaining our core belief system, and our standards. So we really have not changed that much in terms of what it is that we do, how we do it, and what we believe in.
That actually sounds like a lot of what we talk about on this podcast. Specifically, we use the word resiliency a lot. We kind of think that's the word of this year, and that is something that it sounds like you guys are doing. And we always coach our schools and anybody listening that use this year of downtime to build the program that you want to see in the future. And it sounds like you guys did a good job building the program or the rules that you needed now to be successful in a unique situation like this. And so hopefully in the future, we can move forward and you guys can continue to be strong advocates for student safety.
Yeah, that is our intent, certainly. And it being a challenge, we are not shy about taking on challenges. We've had others in the face of regulation. We've had to do adjusting. So our members are very resolute in making sure that we, as CSIET, as a standard-setting organization, are able to continue our role, which is to keep them honest and keep the community honest, as well as our being able to sort of advocate for programs that do adhere to CSIET standards.
Awesome. So then, do you foresee any changes to CSIET standards moving forward?
Well, one thing I would say is that we always are looking at our standards. We have a standards review committee. We do this on an annual basis. Any of those changes that occur in our program audit for the next cycle. So we've already gone through that process. But I will say that this past year has provided us a specific challenge as it pertains to the host families as well as the international students that are being interviewed. We put out guidance last May for F1 programs and schools that interviewing host families and prospective students, there needs to be some level of easement there in terms of how that's done. So we have allowed virtual interviews. And organizations that are conducting these interviews, whether they be with host families or the international student that they're recruiting, programs still have to, they create a record of who interviewed the family, when the interview happened, the names of the family members that took part. We can't get the signatures necessarily straight away from programs, but if possible, it should be the interviews should be followed up with a visit to the home before the student is arriving in the U.S. And really, the same goes for personal interviews with the students, orientations. They can be taking place virtually, and there has to be a record of who conducted that interview and the orientation. And that's what we're looking at for the foreseeable future. So in this particular cycle, we will see programs that are perhaps used to doing these kinds of interviews in person. It will be acceptable that there is a record of having done this virtually. And that's for this particular cycle. I would expect that as things open up, whether that would sort of retract back to the original in-person requirement.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and that's one of the things that through CSIET's guidance that Cambridge Network has been doing as well, where we have opened up the first interview to be online, which lets us kind of expand our host pool and our searches, because instead of having to set up a time to be in person for our staff to drive out and meet somebody at their home, you can do that first one online, which really adds a lot more flexibility to this. It doesn't take as much time. Whether that continues or whether that, gets rescinded, I think we will wait for your guidance on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, this was a request from our members to take a look at this. And it seemed appropriate and something that we could do that would not necessarily affect compliance with our standards relative to the safety of students and host families and the like. So we think it's appropriate for this cycle. And as I said, we revisit on an annual basis. So it may be something else as we approach next year.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I think this was really insightful and interesting for our guests, for our listeners. You are our guest. I hope that in the future we are able to have you back. I know this was a broad kind of 30,000 foot overview of CSIET. Potentially, hopefully, we can have you back in the future to maybe discuss some more interesting things that are changing, what CSIET is doing kind of in the regulatory space, how things are changing as well. But I want to thank you and pass you back to Stephen now.
Yeah, Chris, I echo what Craig said. I think it's never been more important for families in particular to make sure that they are working with CSIET accredited organizations. I think the organization's ability to be flexible in this time, but remaining within your mission and your values is really promising. And I think for our families that are abroad, that's good news to hear. Any final thoughts from yourself? Anything you'd like to close up on in this time?
I would like to thank Cambridge Network for their involvement with CSIET. I think it's very important that organizations engage in a community that espouses a body of standards that are really looking out for the safety and the welfare of the students and really all constituents involved. There's an awful lot that students, host families, and natural parents, teachers get out of this type of program on an annual basis. So it's important that we do it and keep the value and the standards. And I would also say that next time I will make my dog available for the interview.
That would certainly be the expectation. I think when we let you go, you can go give him a treat. I think he held his bark back in the latter half of the interview, which was great.
I think learning about dogs is like 90% of why people listen to podcasts. I feel like I can name most of the dogs the podcasts I listen to, the hosts have. So I don't think you're unique in that.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you again. We really appreciate you being here. From myself, from Mr. Craig Batson in Seattle, that's it for this edition of the Cambridge Insider Podcast. As always, looking to give you the most updated information in this international education sphere. Until next week, guys. Bye-bye.